Blessed love and peace, Rastafari. Honor and respect to His Majesty Haile Selassie I. Honor and respect to Her Majesty Wazir Manan. All thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim Jah. Addendum to the joint I just do. Do you see now a little bit better why and how me being so nastily, cringily, tirely, like fatiguingly honest about myself enables me to be honest about society and share that. Is that further evident and seen? And if that is, for those that it is, I'll just share the next level or further stage experiences that it's not just the honesty about myself in life. It's a livity, and it's not just like a lifestyle and discipline. There's a vibrancy that comes with that as well. It ain't easy. It ain't easy doing it, yo. And you can see how tedious it is to or imagine how tedious it is to be with me, because whoever's with me is enveloped in that realm of obligatoriness as well. It's a cipher of, it's not just a cipher, but it's like a realm or a sphere of just honesty. And so when cats stay in that presence of honesty, it's tough because cats just start talking about themselves, and it's like, I wouldn't say that normally, or I don't even know why I'm saying that. And it's not me. It's not me. It's just the nature of honesty, and it's what I experience in doing it. And it's not easy. It's difficult. You can see that. Just a few days ago, I'm up there in the middle of the night, falling asleep, divulging nasty business about my life. So it's tenacious. But anyways, at the same time, I can say that's what affords me the ability of articulating what's happening in society, and without hate or hostility, whatever, but just facts. But it's needed, and to be honest, again, it's extremely difficult for adults because adults have responsibilities, and so the things that affect adults don't just affect adults, but the people who depend upon those adults: children, spouses, employees, and additionally. So when cats have that honesty, it's personal, but then they shake in the whole infrastructure that they support, that they're girding as well. So I've been doing it for a long time, such that the infrastructure around me is acclimated to me doing this. And again, it ain't easy, but it is what it is. It's beautiful, it's nasty, and it's beautiful. Truth, facts, birds. Now, anyways, that's that. Now, one thing I didn't mention, I was supposed to mention, because I'm derelict. Ega. So, I'm just showing the dimensions here, so it can be for the record. I think that's visible. Is that visible? That's visible. Okay. That's that one. And just for the hardcore cats that need to be thorough in seeing the proof, this is the second joint. I am, other than a magician, to be doing sleights of hand. So, there it is. That is the sakh of a sukkah. And a little bit of exercise there. You saw the dimensions. That is the preparations for Sukkah later this year. And we have the top, and now we're working on the bottom. And I'll do the details of that at this moment, and then I'll share what the intentionalities are continually. So, Sukkot, in terms of market price, tend to run around, to be honest, from 12 to 2 G's U.S. currency. 12 meaning 1,200 to 2 G's currency, U.S. currency, and that's like the basic price. It can go way up further to 5 G's or otherwise, and it can be inexpensive as well. For the past decade, when we do Sukkot here, build a sukkah here, we actually do it DIY style. We have the traditional shach. My Hebrew pronunciation is still wanting, so there it is. But we put that together and have the traditional shach, and then acquire materials from Home Depot, 2x4s, and additionally to construct the bottom part of the sukkah. At this point, the guidance is a larger sukkah that accommodates 20 people, 20 people sitting down for a meal, and additionally within the sukkah. And so that is the stach. The dimensions, again, they're 2 12x8s, and this is U.S. measurements, 12 feet by 12, 12 feet by 6, 12 feet by 8 feet. So the total of it is 16 feet by 12 feet. And so that generally accommodates 20 people. And now we have the top, and now it's working on the framework of it, the frame, and then the covering. So again, arranging about from 1,200 to 2,000. We have a quote at the moment for 600, but we have to work on the methodology or the mechanics of that transfer. So I just communicate that, I put that out there. Now what I communicate here is the intentionality. So I mentioned before the intention of going on the road with the World Livity and Roots. And so basically what we are preparing is that, and bringing the sukkah with us, so that whoever's willing to host us, we bring the sukkah, and if whoever's willing to host us, providing us a space to put up the sukkah, and that being a space to build. If kinfolk have a additional space, like a house or something else for us to reside in additionally, then fantastic. But that's basically what we're working with. And now the sukkah traditionally is only done during a certain period of the year, during Sukkot, which is in the early part of the autumn. However, as I am informed personally, that a sukkah can be utilized year-round. However, the shach has to be taken down, and a different roofing has to be placed upon it, as I understand, and there may be some additional minor adjustments within the sukkah to make it kosher outside of Sukkot. But other than that, it's acceptable, permittable to continue to utilize a sukkah year-round. So that's what our attention is at this point. Wherever we are hosted, putting up the sukkah, and that being our center of sharing. That is much of it that I've shared at this point, and ain't waiting on too much else at this point. So less reason for my ramblings at this point. We also have rice. I'm going to do a little bit of covering because there's a very pretty sister here, but I'm just going to be like this. So basmati brown rice. We got a few of these joints. So that is where we at, what we working with at this moment. And with that, I'll just say, go back to this music thing. I had a conversation recently with Kinfolk about school days. And what I recognize, again, about that topic of school days is a very, I mentioned it being a very influential film in my life, that leads me towards going to an HBCU. Additional factors obviously involved additionally, but it provides some motivation. When I learn about life further, I recognize that it's not just by happenstance. Like we've got connects with Spike Lee, his experience, and additionally the people with the Kinfolk who support him. And additionally, so it's not just some like isolated thing about just seeing some random film someplace and then just making another decision at some random point in time. And additionally, like there's connections, there's people. My elders in my family, in my circle, connected with the elders of Spike Lee and supporting him musically. That a continual conversation that shares the messaging. Same with the Hudlin brothers and John Singleton, and additionally, and it's not just me, but my generation. And so it's like it's not just some separate kind of isolated kind of like magical kind of connections, but like there's a conversation, there's an intentionality, just like when I mentioned in one of the long joints, like the villages having that intentionality of preparation for Kinfolk partnering, studying together to be doctors, and additionally like that evolves into this experience of media, and additionally where even at this moment we're connected knowingly, unknowingly with further collectives of Kinfolk and constituencies that are facilitating our communication and cooperation. So when I see school days, it's not just by happenstance. And there's an intentionality that's guiding me, and that's guiding Spike Lee, and that's guiding all the Kinfolk that are involved accordingly. And that, and when Spike Lee is successful in getting his project completed and sharing it, there's so many people that are influenced by that as well. Not just myself, but my generation. I mentioned before, many of the actors who continue or who are participate even in small roles in the School Days film project actually go on to have significant roles in television projects, different television projects, particularly A Different World. Jasmine Guy, Kadeem Hardison, there's the character whose name is Ron. In Different World, but Tisha Campbell, she wasn't on Different World, but she does some other things. Martin Lawrence's sitcom, and additionally, so featuring additional films as well. Anyways, that's the extent of the influence. So it's not just my personal experience; it's my generation's experience during that period, and it's significant, and it provides a significant amount of strength and encouragement in my studies, in my work, in what I do in economics and law and in business and diplomacy and spirituality. But then all the Kinfolks in their respective endeavors of music and art and culture and literature, and additionally, so it's an influential frame of reference that is continuing to resonate, because we're going on to next levels now, because now cats are repatriating to Africa, going around the world, and it's not just people of African ancestry, but this is part of it. We're connecting with other Kinfolk and connecting with our narratives accordingly. So all that being said, it goes beyond film again into music, and that's the point of me sharing what I'm sharing at the moment. In that film School Days, there was one of the characters, one of the actors. There are many. I've said before. There's Giancarlo Esposito, who goes on to be very well renowned and well known, particularly within one of the recent television series Breaking Bad, that there's that. But he does a lot of other projects before that. I mean, he's just a rather quality actor. Bill Nunn, I mentioned before, blessed memory, peace and blessings be with him. So many people were in that, because like I said, Sam Jackson, and then obviously Lawrence Fishburne, Spike Lee himself. There's so many just highly talented actors that are involved in that. one of whom also is actually not even like a full-time actor. He's actually a musician, Branford Marsalis. And at that point, again, he's young, maybe 19, 20, something like that when he does this. But at that point, he's still a phenom at that moment. His family, Branford Marsalis, Wynton Marsalis, are well known in the jazz scene, in the jazz I won't say industry, but in the jazz experience as being prodigies, jazz prodigies, coming from a jazz family, and Branford Marsalis is actually his quartet, I think it was a quartet, was actually the ones who did the soundtrack to another Spike Lee film called Mo Better Blues. Spike Lee's father, Bill Lee, is a well accomplished jazz musician in his own right, which is something that's very influential in Spike Lee's films. If you listen to the score, and additionally, the jazz and the musicality is just like it adds to the experience of the film, the story, the narrative of the film, particularly like in that film Mo Better Blues, obviously. But even in all films, particularly as Spike Lee gets into like the height of his height, that's a little bit pejorative, but to suggest that there is some kind of like delineation along the lines. But anyways, Do the Right Thing, Jungle Fever, and additionally the music is just So Branford Marsalis is he has his own quartet at that age. If you see him in that film, School Days, and see how young he is. He plays a young acting kind of dude as well. You see how young he is. He has his own quartet at that moment. He's like an accomplished musician at that moment. And if you listen to that soundtrack, that was my introduction to jazz. My dad is a jazz head. Grew up with Miles Davis in East St. Louis, Lincoln High School, and additionally, my father was steeped in that. That's what he would listen to day in, day out, just jazz. When he comes home, he would just go into his den, his man cave, just put on the jazz, earphones on, and blasting in his ears. That's how he coped with life, and with some additional things as well we're not gonna talk about. But jazz, my dad was in it. But at the same time, me growing up, my dad didn't put me onto it too tough, because he's like, yo, you ain't ready for this. I ain't gonna have you disrespect what this is. So he didn't like put me onto it like too tough. It was there. I could hear it. He would show me some things, but it wasn't a lot. And it was until Mo Better Blues comes that I can see it from my own generation. And the soundtrack with Branford Marsalis features Terrence Blanchard on the trumpet. So just phenomenal, and only a few tracks, but it's just like next level quality. So and the thing about jazz, again, it's instruments. I mean, there are a couple of tracks that have some lyrics, but I mean, jazz generally is just instruments. So it's the experience, and there's an intrinsic truth within that. And yeah, as the Jungle Fever, not Jungle Fever, but Mo Better Blues shows, like jazz musicians, they didn't depict like chemical dependency or intoxication, but they showed other things that were like, showed the foibles about the jazz musicians. So it's not just all some kind of like dreamy, angelic kind of utopia or whatever. But that's influenced. That's part of the music. But such is life in anybody, in musicians, in addition. But anyways, there's an intrinsic honesty within jazz because it is instrumental, because it comes from an experience of affliction. When the instruments were taken, the drum was taken, you try to play it, cutting off hands, death of trying to express one's own culture. So if you want something here, do this trumpet here, do this saxophone here, here's a drum set, here's a piano, for those who are trusted and obedient. But even then, taking it and lighting it up, jazz. So I come to appreciate that when I'm like 15, I was on a college trip, and saw the film already. Again, Spike Lee was able to get these mass distributed into the theaters, where was the only way we could see these type of stories at that time. No internet, no cable television easily accessible, because it was panga. So like one of the things, seeing that experience, going to the films. There's very little available videotapes, CD players, DVDs at the library. The library wasn't getting that stuff. So Spike Lee was able to share that experience on the big screen, so that cats like myself could have access to that in a mainstream culturally acceptable way. And then so after I see the film, I get the soundtrack, and now I'm listening to the soundtrack. So I'm learning about jazz on my own, and like, yo, this is hidden, and start to like wake up to that, and particularly, and then this is where we get like the nostalgia factor, because then we start having life experiences whilst we're listening to that music. And so one of the things I distinctly remember and experience and is influential is when I go on a college trip. My junior year, no, it was actually my senior year, because I had already been accepted to Hampton, and so I'd been I went on a college trip around Ohio in my junior year, and but then when I was actually applying and everything, I wanted to I need to get out further. I need to like do something further than this. And so I had already applied to Hampton, applied to Howard, applied to Morehouse, got into each one, had a partial scholarship, or actually had a hint of a scholarship at Morehouse, but they're like, yo, we want a deposit, and then we'll tell you how much we'll give you. Hampton had already given me a partial scholarship, so I was leaning towards Hampton. And Howard is just a little bit thuggish for my readiness at that moment. But still, like giving that a look. And so that was the college trip. Went to Howard, Hampton, Norfolk State, went to Georgetown actually. Went to some other places as well. And on that trip, again, I'm corny. I'm even as a senior, like I'm the outsider. And it was a HBCU trip, so everybody there is black kinfolk. But still, like and they're younger than me too, most of them. So they're not trying me too hard. But at the same time, I'm like doing my own thing. As everybody else is like we're on the bus. Before getting on the bus was even done, because it was before that time. Everybody's doing their like the whole trip days. It was like maybe 4 or 5 days or something like that on the road, hitting the different campuses, campi. So a lot of time is just like on the road, hours on end, just traveling from one spot to the next. And what do we got to do? I had a Walkman back in those days, had a tape deck, with earphones, and some people had that, some people didn't. They just chop it up, playing their own thing. There's a brother in there, there's a sister in there, so that has that element as well. Cats were doing their own games, whether it was playing cards or whatever else. And so I was just in my seat by myself, listening to my earphones, and the thing I was listening to at that moment, Mo Better Blues, on loop, back over and over and over and over again, hours and 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 hours. That was it. I might have had some other tapes, a few other tapes, but Mo Better Blues for like 5 days straight. And some tracks, there was a mechanism on some of the tape decks, the advanced Walkmans, where you could do. I don't know if I had it on that one. I might have had it later, but I might have just done it myself, because back in those days, we knew how long things were. We knew exactly where the tape was, where the song began. And sometimes I would just play that one track titled Mo Better Blues over and over again. Dee 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 dee. Dee 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 dee. Dee 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 dee. Dee 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 dee. Now, it's a little bit of auto-tune or whatever, but the thing about it is, like, jazz has an intrinsic sorrowness within it, like a melancholy, like suffering. That's because that's where it comes from, and there's no escaping it. If it seems like jolly or whatever, and you don't hear that sorrowness, you're not listening, or it's not it. It's not it. It's fake. It's not it. All jazz comes from sorrow. It's got to happen. I'm starting to cry as I think about it. All jazz has that sorrow, because that's where jazz comes from. But at the same time, jazz has endurance, gambaro, perseverance, because that's where jazz comes from. And jazz can be happy. Jazz can be celebratory. Jazz can help you forget that you're sad. But it's always there. And it's not something to be sad about. It's just something to recognize. And it helps us to connect, see the sadness in others, and help. So, when I'm on that tour, busload of kinfolk, living it up, I'm by myself. Tape deck, on loop, Mo Better Blues. And when I visited the campuses, I saw an opportunity of like getting beyond it. Of like, okay, here's what was promised. Here's the next step. When I saw Hampton, home by the sea, on the Chesapeake Bay, kinfolk like, yo, gotta come through, be here, gotta hear. I'm like, yo, okay, yeah, all right, I see this. And like I said, the seeds had already been established. I already saw the depiction of that, but now I was on the campus. I was in the different world, and I could see it for myself. And I could see, okay, you know what? I can see something here. There's some possibility here. And there is. I do find some answers. Now, the struggle continues. The saga continues. All the answers aren't there because ultimately the answers are within us. And the answers are continually needed. Like, there's always going to be challenges in this life. There's always 50 years later, whatever else. So it ain't over, and it's not going to be over. But at the same time, there's reassurance that there is a solution, and there is work. There's a way of manifesting that solution. And so sometimes it's happy and cheery. Sometimes it's pain. One of the things I shared recently is that one of the reasons why it's so easy for me to be smiley and laughy is because it's very easy for me to be cry and teary. Teary, potato. So music is a way of connecting and being in relationship with that experience. Remembering that experience, learning from that experience, sharing and building that experience, and the healing too. So that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm just talking about the music. I mentioned again, like Branford Marsalis. It's his I want to say quintet. It's on my iTunes. I had, how many times have I had that album? I had it like when it was a tape. I had it when it was a CD. I had it after the CD was stolen. I had it as iTunes. Actually, I still think I do have it as iTunes. So I still have legal access to it or whatever. Do I? I don't know actually. But yeah, I'm not past downloading it now because how many times I done. And actually, for some reason, I might not have it technically, legally, officially in the iTunes, which is why I had to go to the dun. But in doing the dun, does it have the information? Chan. A Branford Marsalis quartet featuring the Branford Marsalis quartet featuring Terence Blanchard. Now that's just the album title that's on the download that I done bootlegged from the interweb, which is one of the reasons why I have this obligation of sharing accordingly beyond what is. Was I up on this? I think I was reading from the screen. Which is why I record these joints. One of the reasons why I have this obligation of sharing, because I receive as well. So there's some benefit. Some cats receive somewhere, sometime, somehow, somewhere out there, someone saying something. That was almost on to. Now that was Peebo Bryson and another sister. Anyway. I was, again, that's 50 Goes West, 50 something or other. I never saw the film, but that song was on the radio a lot. So obviously. There it is. Fantastic. Another half hour. Done. And all that can be said is, all thanks and praise to the Most High, Elohim Jah. Respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie I. Respect and honor to Her Majesty Wazaramanan. Blessed love and peace, Rastafari.